of welcoming differences. My name's Ben, as you might have seen from my tag. I'm part of the youth group at St Mary's Church. We were asked to run this workshop at Mac North, as we were the first ever youth group to lead a workshop at Breathe Deep. We were asked to run that workshop because Megan, who you'll hear from shortly, sent some feedback to the organisers of Breathe Deep the previous year. So Megan, what feedback did you send?
So as a group, we discussed how we found the day, and one of the leaders encouraged me to send my feedback to Bishop Sophie and to the team who organised the event. My observation was that the audience was very diverse, however that was not reflected in the public with the people leading on stage or in the workshops. They were all white and older. I also thought that there were a lot of young teenagers, but the older ones not seem to have space to reflect on specific topics or conversations, and if the church wants to keep its young people, then they need to have their own space and their own voice. Similarly, the church wants to welcome difference and diversity, then diversity needs to be visible at every level, and especially up at the front. My feedback was well received, and Mike Mill came to talk to us as a youth group. And one of the outcomes of our conversation was him asking us to lead a workshop at the next PD, and there being more diverse representation throughout the event, which was visible in performances, musicians, as well as those who led the worship. I thank you for wanting to welcome difference, and we're going to share more of our learning and experiences and ideas with you, but first we have a video. Please see.
What makes you two different from each other?
I used to not like letters, but now I like letters. I do not like letters at all. Lucy loves tomato sauce, and I do like it, but I don't love it as much as Lucy. Don't have the same. Our office is down the hill, and I live up the hill. No, I have smaller toes than Artie. I like screws and chips, and I like sushi. And they're different. She never stops talking. You got different hair? He lives in a house that doesn't have squirrels in the roof. We have squirrels in the roof, so we can't watch television that much because it's biting all the wires. Both. I'm good at gymnastics and Kayla May is good at swimming. I'm not good at dancing. I am. You're a defender and I'm a defender. No, I'm not anymore. I used to be, now I'm not. No, we're not. What? Good at counting and I'm good at hiding. And Matthew's good at... better at Tig. And Matthew's good at staying in den.
When it comes to difference, children see things differently.
Hello everyone, my name is Rudy. And I'm Diane. We would like to invite you to join in an easy game with us. It involves waving both your arms in the air. Can we see all the arms in the air? Okay, now if the following statements apply to you, please can you wave your arms in the air? Wave your arms if you could speak another language. Wave your arms if you have ever lived in another country. Wave your arms if the only place you've lived is Yorkshire. Wave your arms if you have ever been a part of a sports team. Wave your arms if you have ever been part of a choir or music group. Wave your arms if you can paint or draw well. Wave your arms if you're a very well organized person. Wave your arms last-minute person. Where you are if you belong to a church. We are all different, but we all belong.
We hope that video got you thinking a bit about difference. What is normal, or usual, or commonplace for you might well be different for someone else. We all have our own unique perspectives. We share some of our differences as well as some of our similarities, but we all belong equally in the kingdom of God. But what does that mean what does the Bible say about welcoming difference? We think this passage might be important to keep in mind.
Corinthians 12, starting with verse 12. For just as the body is one and has many members, and all the members of the body, though many, are one body, so it is with Christ. For in the one Spirit we were all baptized into one body, Jews or Greeks, slaves or free, and we were all made to drink of one Spirit. Indeed, the body does not consist of one member, but of many. If the foot would say, because I am not a hand, I do not belong to the body, that would not make it any less a part of the body. And if the ear would say, because I am not an eye, I do not belong to the body, that would not make it any less a part of the body. If the whole body were an eye, where would the hearing be? If the whole body were hearing, where would the sense of smell be? But as it is, God arranged the members in the body, each one of them as he chose. If all were a single member, where would the body be? As it is, there are many members, yet one body. The eye cannot say to the hand, I have no need of you, nor again the head to the feet, I have no need of you. On the contrary, the members of the body that seem to be weaker are indispensable, and the members of the body that we think less honourable we clothe with greater honour, and our less respectful members are treated with greater respect, whereas our more respectful members do not need this. But God has so arranged the body, giving the greater honour to the inferior member, that there may be no dissension within the body, but the members may have the same care for one another. If one member suffers, all suffer together with it. If one member is honoured, all rejoice together with it. Now you are the body of Christ and individually members of it.
Now, I'm sure you are probably familiar with those words, and you have probably come to this workshop wanting a few practical ideas for awesome inspiration. So we want to share our own personal stories, what has worked for us, what we have learned and are still learning, and what our experiences have been. First, a few general points. We asked all our youth group what made you feel welcome and included in church, and responses were
Being greeted at the door, having different age appropriate groups regularly, talking together as a whole community, working together like a family, singing songs from different cultures, using different languages for the Bible readings and the Lord's Prayer, dreaming and sharing our food together, being allowed and encouraged to lead in services and reflections so there's a variety and diversity in our Sunday services.
We also asked what has made you feel awkward or excluded, and responses were
being put on the spot and asked to do or say something without warning, being too intense in friendly conversations, not respecting or taking the youth's views into account, people trying to be friendly but sometimes intimidating.
We are a very diverse group. Our age ranges from 12 to 17. Some of us are black British, some of us are white British, some of us have lived all our lives in Sheffield, some of us have spent our childhood in France, others have recently arrived from Nigeria. Some of us live with both our parents, others of us live with our mums because our parents are separated. Some of our families have good income, and others have a lot of money struggles. Some of us are confident and like to be up front. Others of us prefer to be quiet. Some of us are musical, some of us are artistic. Some of us are good with words. We are all different, but we all go to the same church. We are a part of the same youth group, and together we learn and grow and have fun and play our part in serving God and making a difference in the world. Now we'll hear from Abby.
Hello everyone, my name is Annie and I'll be sharing my thoughts with you about welcoming difference and diversity within our church, St. Mary's. So when I originally started going to church, it was a church which was led by an entirely black congregation. Therefore, the order in which the service was conducted was very different to that of St. Mary's, in the sense that previously I was only used to certain types of music, mainly African music. I also felt like, when I was going to this church, that it was easy to identify with the church and make friends, because we all physically share the same features, predominantly in race, cultures, and ethnic backgrounds. So you could say that I grew up with a sort of stigma, and that stigma was I had a belief that people who went to church mainly shared all the same qualities, and that for me it was only really black people who were Christians. And if I'm being completely honest, people who weren't black being part of the Christian community wasn't something that really made sense to me, as I thought Christianity was a religion that dominated only black people's lives. That's when I came to St. Mary's around 6 to 7 years ago. Although I was only 9 to 10 years old at the time, it seemed very unusual to me to be surrounded by Christians who weren't just from one main society or culture. There were lots of different people with different stories to share. Initially, however, I wasn't open to this new church which I started going to. In fact, I missed my old church. The friends I had made, the jokes we made about our families, because they all grew up with similar lifestyles, and how easy it was to relate to each other. We didn't need to explain anything to one another or help each other understand anything, because everything clicked and made sense. We were like brothers and sisters, from different families physically, but from the same families emotionally. There was a point where most Sundays, although I haven't really said this to anybody, where me and my family would go to our old church after the St. Mary's church, because it was in the afternoon and it would be after the St. Mary's service. And in these days, during these days, I would love these days, because in all honesty, I dreaded being in a new setting, as I felt I couldn't resonate with people so easily. And although I was young at the time, and when you're younger, you're expected to be more bubbly and carefree, talking to people wasn't something I enjoyed, especially if my real friends were waiting for me in a different location, where everything was simple and comfortable. As time went on, I became older, which meant I could join the youth group, which ranges from ages 12 to 17. There were many fun things that we did with our previous youth leader, Amy, when I first joined. For example, like how I attended my first Breathe Deep when I was 11 years old. So essentially, I began to see my youth group as sort of a social hangout space, or a way of doing something interesting every now and then I would just forget about them and continue moving on with my life. But as time continued passing, I saw myself passively talking to people with my youth group more often. I started to become more comfortable with them, talking to them more frequently and voluntarily, not just because someone had approached me and started the conversation. We asked for advice, and they answered. I would send them a message for advice over the phone, and they would be there. No matter what I was doing or where I was, they were always there for me, even when I still craved and missed my old church. From that point on, I began to notice more of the similarities and differences about my youth members, both physical and clear qualities like race and gender, but also other facts that may not always be so ambiguous, like the fact that we weren't always born in Sheffield, also that some of us are fluent in other languages. I began seeing my youth group as not just an occasional Sunday meetup, but as my friends. And despite the fact that we are different and divergent from one another, most of the time, see each other as equals. And yes, it did take time for me to understand and connect with each and every one of them. But that was only because I had convinced myself internally that a church like this, mixed with different cultures, different music, and different people, was absurd in modern life. But I've learned that differences aren't barriers that are set in stone which divide us. But it's ourselves who choose to create these walls for ourselves, because we like to be comfortable in the things that we're familiar with, and the traditions that easily resonate with our own identities. But we have to be the ones to step out of our comfort zones and see the world that is constantly evolving around us. I wouldn't be able to have the courage to share my personal thoughts and opinions about St. Mary's Church today if I did believe that they would look down upon me. But it is because I know that they accept me for who I am, which is why I can share my original perspectives about them. The world around us doesn't involve segregation nor individualism. It involves community and diversity, merging together to represent one body of Christ, which was given for every single one of us. Not just one culture, or race, or background, but for me standing in front of you today, for you sat in this space listening to this message, and for everyone else in the outside world today. Let us welcome diversity and difference and share the word of God together. And as we learned earlier with Bishop Sophie and Bishop Pete, let us, as it says in Isaiah chapter 43, verse 17, forget the former things. And that doesn't mean kind of go rogue and declare anarchy, but encouraging each other to welcome difference and diversity and be able to declare, as it says in Isaiah chapter 43, verse 18, to say, look, I'm doing a new thing.
My name is Pedro, and I would like to share my story. I arrived in Sheffield from Nigeria in March this year. I came with my parents and my younger brother. The most difficult thing for me ever since I got here has been trying to know the country, trying to know the rules and regulations, trying to get along with others and make friends in school, and even know my children at school. But when I came to church, St. Mary's, we felt welcomed by everyone. I like St. Mary's because of its great values, unity and cooperation among everyone. I made my first friends in church because when I came here, I was bored. I was a little shy because I didn't know anyone around here, but I came with my brother, but we didn't naturally talk that much. I got into my present school through everyone's support in church, especially Karen and Miriam. Church has been the best place for me ever since I got here, because I felt welcomed by everyone, and even though we were different, we had a different background. I even taught the church a song with my own dialect, and everyone loved it and sang it with us. I was happy when we went on the camping, we had fun, it was fun and everyone enjoyed it. Everyone at the church are accommodating, responsible and reliable. There is no discrimination in St. Mary's. I love being a Christian and role model for Christ because of St. Mary's Church. They taught me, and I really am happy to be among St. Mary's Church. Thank you.
As you know, my name is Megan, and I was born in France. So when I came to the UK, we had difficulty finding a church. I also had the predominantly black church experience like me. However, when we came to St. Mary's, I felt welcome and included in church, and my voice was heard. It was because I was heard that I was able to receive help when I needed it. I'm in the year of university applications and exams. The members of St. Mary's Church do not ask me to do anything that they do not think that I am capable of doing. And that is why I'm here during this challenging year, and I can speak to you all confidently because I've done this many times before with the church's support. When I sought places to volunteer, the church was here, and I have since enjoyed preparing shared meals, running activities for young children, and managing finance. When I needed help academically, I had access to years of experience and knowledge and connections within the members of my church. When I felt troubled, the church offered many resources and guidance for my family. I am proud to be part of a community that listens. Because when we listen, we can hear those who are vulnerable. We can hear those who are worried. And we can hear those who we, as individuals, might be able to help or advise or refer harm to. When St. Mary's gave a voice to the youth, the nature of St. Mary's changed, in the sense that God is using the youth to teach the adults, to speak to the adults, to show the adults that there is no age to faith, that in spirituality we are all as wise as each other. In the passage you heard from Toby, 1 Corinthians 12, verse 23, the Lord says, the members of the body that seem to be weaker are indispensable. Ideally, our children and our youth should be protected and guided and loved. They are not weaker, as one could argue that as you age, you become more frail. However, they are not entirely strong either, so we look up to our parents and the adults in our lives. Though we seem to be weaker among our families, in our schools, to the politicians, against the problems in the world, in our religious communities, in our lives, there will be a time where we will have to take over in the future. We will extend our families, we will become teachers, we will make the big decisions, we will discover our own faith, we will face the problems of the world, and we will not all have our parents and the adults in our lives to look up to, but we will have their knowledge. I'd like to think that the Lord in this passage is calling the youth indispensable. Because in truth, we are absolutely necessary in continuing His will through our communities as those have done before us. He did not give us a time or an age or a particular task, but He emphasized that we, as seemingly weaker members of the body, are indispensable. So I suppose that there is a weight in our opinions and our experiences and our faith, whether it is acknowledged or not. They should be considered whilst both the adults and the youth are all together as one, like we are in this room. But they will not always be, and the responsibility of the church and education and politics and conflict will undeniably, certainly, irrevocably fall into our hands. The adults and the youth should be working alongside each other for the time being, so that we may learn from one another before it is too late. If we do not listen now, if we do not call the youth back, if we don't show the youth how to lead and guide and teach on their own, if we do not develop these skills, there will not be a youth to carry on the legacy of the church, of our communities, of our families. Because they will not know how to, and they will not know that they should do. Just because God sees the value in our youth does not mean that they are aware of it. When they are not treated like their voices and actions have an impact. When they do not know that their presence is powerful and pivotal to the future of this earth. 1 Corinthians verses 25-27. God commands that there may be no dissension within the body, but the members have the same care for one another. If one member suffers, all suffer together with it. If one member is honored, all rejoice together with it. Naturally, the adults are responsible for their children and the youth. But the children are just as responsible for their parents and the adults. We are accountable for one another, and on the day of judgment, our actions and our words and our treatment of one another are all put to question. Let it not be ignorance that weighs down the adults, and silence that weighs down the youth. In the habit where the adults discuss and make the big decisions, they will not see that the children hold the solution. And sometimes God will not let them see. For the children have been forgotten for too long and will start to take their own initiative. And perhaps initiative is what led me to email Bishop Sophie, despite the fact that I had no intention to start a change. I just wanted to be heard, and I was listened to. Thank you.
Well, now we've heard from three wonderful speakers. We wondered at the moment, do you have any questions for us currently that you want to have answered, or just wondered if there's an answer? If not, would you speak with each other, like the children in the video, on your differences and how you can use them to improve the church or welcome other people into the church? I'll give you 5 minutes. Focus. anyone got any examples that they're willing to share of them welcoming difference or their differences or something like that? No takers?
Is that within church or just in general?
In general,
In general. My daughter's adopted a little boy who is mixed race.
Thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
Anyone else brave enough? No? So,
Oh,
yes.
My children are mixed race. I married a man from Pakistan. And I think because love was originally at the centre of the relationship, the rest just followed on. And I think there's quite a lot of ignorance and a lack of understanding, cultural differences. And I think what we've heard today is really, really encouraging and brave that our young people are stepping out. So thank you.
Thank you. Yes?
We're called, in the Great Commission, we're called to go out and make disciples. We're not called to go and make clones. and I think that's worth remembering, that you've illustrated that very well for us.
We all have our own faults, don't we? We're all human. Alright, anyone else or... So, does anyone have any questions for our little panel?
There are two differences that I wondered if you have a view on. One is about the difference where somebody has an other ability or a disability, how far you go to include, and also around sexuality and identity.
Yes, so you may not notice, but I have a hearing aid on. That doesn't really affect me in any way, but we don't really have anyone in the congregation for the youth who has a disability that is noticeable. And so we would definitely accept them and try and help out, like our youth group's on the mezzanine, so first floor. If any person with disabilities we've got an elevator which can help bring them to the floor. We've got hot chocolate. As welcoming identity, I believe we're all very welcoming and everyone is welcomed. As God created the world, this is how I view it. As God created the world and created everything, He created LGBTQ+, He created everything. Since He built the world, everything in the world is of His design. And so everything is as it should be. So people having their own identity is what God created. Thanks, man. Thank you. Anyone else got any questions?
On that note, our church provides us with a lot of resources, and there was an event relating to LGBTQ and experiences of those within the community and their faith. It wasn't at our church, but we were told of it, and we were also usually were given ways to travel to areas that aren't local to us, so that we may attend these events if we wish to. And it's not that I do not think there is no distinction between how members of our youth are treated. So if we were to have members with physical known disabilities, I'm pretty sure that would make a difference in how we feel about it.
Any more questions? Yes?
I'm hugely inspired by all of you, I hope you know that. I would love to know your thoughts. You have a wonderful experience at St Mary's, which you've all said is like hugely positive for you. If you're able to, can anyone respond on a larger scale for our diocese across different churches? What needs to change for us to do church better?
I think one thing that we noticed when Mike approached us to run a workshop at Pretty Deep was that there weren't many youth groups still within churches in Sheffield or just around England. And that was really something that they were lacking and missing. That's why we were one of the few people who they could actually approach to run a workshop. So I think encouraging the youth within churches or gaining youth members, whether that's just as we have lots of different people or just 3 or 4 people, we have to start from somewhere. We can't wait for a source of motivation. We have to be determined to actually allow that change to happen and to spark that change for the next generation.
Yes?
Just following on from that, and thank you, really inspirational stuff, and I'm delighted to see you being the change that you wanted to see, which is awesome. Can I just ask about the sort of projecting forward, say 5 years' time or so, what would you hope would be different, not just in St Mary's, but sort of more widely in the church? How would we know that we'd have seen something of your vision come to pass if it was looking forward into the future?
One of the things that I think I'd like to see 5 years into the future is youth having a more active role just in church in general. It doesn't mean taking over the adult roles. We may have possibly leading a service once every couple of months, just for people to show their opinions and develop those leadership roles for later in life. Because church is a place to develop and grow. That doesn't just mean with God. And so in 5 years' time, although I'll be either in uni or in a job, I would like to see youth having just a role, whether it's participating in social supermarkets or just volunteering for the church.
I think to add on what Ben said, I think it will be evident even in 20 years' time if we notice churches are still here, because therefore we know that the young people in the church who have now become the adults are the ones leading the church, are the ones making that difference, and we can see that when the church is developed and grown over time.
I think having a system in place that puts youth in roles of leadership and in spaces where they're able to develop those life skills. There's a lot of volunteering that happens at St Mary's that I'm a part of and Anna's a part of, and we help Messy Church and preparing food for shared communal meals. And my little brother was part of the panel downstairs who asked the questions, and that's just showing that the youth, putting them in those positions where they can express their voices. It's really pivotal towards how they grow in life and their experiences at school, having more confidence to be able to speak about their own faith. And as someone who's going to leave the church soon, go to university or wherever I may be, it's good to know that after I leave, there'll still be more youth coming up in roles like myself.
Yes?
Can I just add, coming from a church that I think has little or no youth or children's ministry, one thing that struck me when you were talking at the beginning was what put you off, and that was being friendly but also coming across as intimidating. Which is the last thing I'd ever want to do, be intimidating. So have you got any sort of pearls of wisdom as how we can approach, our youth and children in our communities without coming over as being intimidating?
Hot chocolate.
Hot chocolate. Fantastic journals. Duly noted.
Biscuits.
So hot chocolate and biscuits.
One thing I've noticed when I sometimes walk past this church on my way to one of my lessons, and one of the things I noticed is on the way home from school they got a table saying biscuits and chocolate inside, and they're welcoming people who are coming back from school into the church, even if it's just for a snack and possibly a talk. It's inviting them to come speak with you instead of going to speak with them. Because if people come to you, it's their will. If you come to them, it's more a pressure that you're trying to apply. Yes?
One of the things I was struck by is thinking that, a bit like with Beth, there aren't many young people who come to our church. So did you go to St Mary's because your parents were going and you were taken and then you got involved in the youth? or was it friends from school that you met that said, I'm going to this great thing, come with me? How did you get started? Because there's part of me that thinks the parents have such an important role in breaking down those barriers and building the bridges, because I think it's hard for kids of your age just to go to church when you've had no contact with it at all. What do you think about that?
That is true. People tend to come with their parents because their parents got the congregation. You might know my dad in the corner. I've been going to church since...
Oh, is that your dad?
She knows who I am.
Sorry, Ben.
I've been going to the church basically since I was born. It's become an integral part of my just daily life. And so bringing your children, having families who have children and young people is probably one of the most important parts. Just because although they may not think they want to come along, just by going there and making a routine, it builds it as part of their lives. Like me at the moment, I'm still questioning everything, and I still go to church, I sing at St. John's, I regularly participate in worship. We're all questioning everything. It's one of the things, you can't really have a faith if you're not questioning everything.
On that note, I learned of St. Mary's Church through my cousins who were going at the church, and they really liked their experience at St. Mary's Church, which led me to going there when I was having difficulties with my family to find a church. I've also noticed that through local events like Breathe Deep, and my church has community days and family activity days and Mercy Church, I've noticed that the people coming do then resonate with the church sometimes, and they do then start coming to St. Mary's themselves from participating in activities that we hold. So I think it's just branching out to everyone, and they tend to make their own decision to then stick with the church because they just like how it is.
Thank you.
Yes.
As youth leaders or proto-youth leaders, do you think it's better for you to be allowed to find your own leadership style in your own time, or do you think the adult leaders can help you in some way, and if so, how?
It's good to have your own sort of style, but you have to build on something. You can't have leadership without being led, because if you don't know what it's like to be led, then how will you know whether your style of leadership is correct for other people? And so having leaders interact with young people to show how to lead is an integral part of learning leadership. By having someone lead for you, you understand what you need to do to lead, although you may not be leading then. And later, when you are approached and asked, will you do this or will you do that, you have a certain sort of base to build upon, like I've been doing from my dad, from people at St. Mary's. My style of leadership, although it seems relatively calm in some times, is just to have some people doing some stuff and others doing others, as everyone does. Was that it, Dad? Or?
I think I'll let you have some hot chocolate when you
Anyone else want to build on?
I think acknowledging the leaders around you can really help shape the way you lead and the appropriateness of how you lead as well. When I write my reflections, I send them to Karen and Miriam so they can look over and make sure that what I'm saying does not offend anyone, is appropriate to the age range that is going to listen to what I'm saying, just reflecting the audience in the way you lead as well, so that they may understand what you are saying and take from what you are saying. I think that's very important.
Yes?
Can I just say as well how inspirational this experience has been brilliant. And standing in front of us are leaders, and we can see that very clearly. And I suppose my question is, as people who actually see the importance of generating leadership amongst young people and are demonstrating it, you will grow old. So how do you keep that spark so that in the future, what will you take from now into the future that ensures that you're enabling the young people of the future to be in leadership and to be voices in church? What will you take into the future?
I think what I've found currently is that being able to see people next to me leading is one of my favourite things, because it shows people's growth. And so I think one of the things that will keep my spark alive, if I ever do decide to become a youth leader or see people doing youth, is being able to see them grow and develop and become just a bigger and better part of the community. That spark should hopefully be passed down through them, and they'll just, the cycle repeats, hopefully. Anyone else? Yes?
I think what's important is, where for us we see like Karen and Miriam and Giles, which is that's that. We see them leading and doing roles in church, which on our own at times, as Ben said, it can be quite intimidating and scary. But when we're with people who are similar to us, people who are the same age, we feel more comfortable. And then over time, although we start small, we're able to grow, to have the independence and do it on our own. And then hopefully the younger people now, in 10 years' time, they'll see us doing that, and maybe they'll think, oh, that's something I would never do. But when they see that we can do it, then perhaps they are motivated to do it too.
I think it's having those conversations with people you feel comfortable with that have the power to make a change, and also implementing those systems and those routes and pathways for the youth to be more involved, even in little things like perhaps reading a Bible passage, and bigger things like reading a reflection or that they've written to the service like now. So it's just making a path, making a way for that to happen instead of blocking the idea entirely.
Any more questions? Or should we just adjourn and go and have lunch?